Time for another category, and in this case, we'll discuss the top food and beverage ERP systems in 2026. So let's dive right in.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Gupta. I am principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent, vendor-agnostic technology advisory firm. We help our clients with technology strategy, system selection, change management. On that note, let's go back to today's topic, which is the top food and beverage ERP systems in 2026. Before we look at the list, we always like to set the expectations how we define the food and beverage market. In this particular case, we will look at all companies that are part of food and beverage value chain. And sometimes these companies may not be the true food and beverage. For example, if you have any sort of consulting firms or service firms, if they are operating in the food and beverage space, for the most part, we will include those companies as part of this list. Now, if you want to know about any specific business model nuances, which category or the business model for which these ERP systems might be a fit, then you need to pay close attention to my commentary as I discuss each of the systems. Now, we are looking at all different business models, any sort of food and beverage manufacturing. In general, if you look at different companies, the way food and beverage companies operate, they are not as deep into the ERP capabilities, ERP functionality. They are not very cost-driven organizations. For example, let's say if you compare this with any other discrete manufacturing verticals, for the most part, especially the expensive discrete manufacturing verticals, these businesses and the industries tend to be slightly more low margin, and they just don't have as much need for the cost tracking, where you are going to have the real advantages of an ERP system. For the most part, these companies care for speed. In their case, the WMS, the warehouse processes, the TMS processes that are going to be far more important than the traditional ERP processes. And that's why the ERP systems that we have as part of the list, they are slightly different. Even if you look at the kind of bill of material structure that these companies follow and the way their planning works, it's very different compared to several other manufacturing as well as distribution spaces. So we look at all of these aspects as we look at the list. Now, if you look at among the process manufacturing systems as well, you are going to have some of very unique capabilities. For example, catch weight, or you are going to have any sort of costing-driven workflows. The way the costing-driven workflows are designed, the way inventory planning works in this particular space is very, very, very different. And again, we'll touch on all of these aspects. Even the route planning, as well as they have the in-house fleet, that is not going to be as common among several other industries and companies. So food and beverage space is very unique in general. Now, to compile this list, we have used several different variables. Generally, we pay attention to product share, acquisition strategy. If the vendor is very focused on the food and beverage vertical and they have acquired these capabilities for this specific product line, then generally they rank higher on our list. Product roadmap, community, ecosystem, win rate, technology strategy, as well as investors. And now we are looking at AI roadmap as well. So we have considered all of those factors. So now let's look at the list. Number 10 on our list is SAP S/4HANA, SAP S/4HANA is a great system for very large companies, especially the companies that care primarily for general ledger functionality. In general, in the SAP S/4HANA space or ecosystem, you are going to have EWM, the TMS. SAP does have the transportation management module as part of their portfolio, which is going to be a slightly different system compared to the ERP product, even though everything is sold as part of that SAP S/4HANA suite. So SAP S/4HANA is great, and it has been installed within very large food and beverage companies. And for the most part, you will require several different last mile capabilities for it to be able to work among food and beverage manufacturers and distributors. Even if you are going to be a small manufacturer, for the most part, you will either require the customization or you would require some of those last mile capabilities. And that's where for the smaller and mid-size manufacturers and distributors in the food and beverage space, SAP S/4HANA might be slightly bloated, bulky, expensive. It might not be as great fit. But let's say if you're using SAP S/4HANA only for the GL layer, you have several different business models and you are trying to accommodate that as part of the same layer. Maybe you are on Blue Yonder or Manhattan. In those use cases, SAP S/4HANA is going to be a great fit to unify the processes across several different business models as well as entities. And if from the M&A perspective, if you are very active in those cases as well, SAP S/4HANA could be a great fit. So that's number 10. Number 9 on our list is Oracle Cloud ERP. Oracle Cloud ERP has a very similar positioning as SAP S/4HANA. For the most part, you are looking at several different add-ons, last mile capabilities through their partner ecosystem, but it is going to be a global solution. It's going to be globalized and localized in many different geographies. In some of those geographies, some of the systems that we have captured as part of the list might not be present there. They might not be able to support the processes of those countries. So Oracle Cloud ERP is going to have very similar positioning, slightly generalized ERP. For the last mile capabilities, you are looking at several different add-ons, vendors that you have to work with. But again, if you're using Oracle Cloud ERP primarily for that GL layer, Oracle Cloud ERP does have the supply chain planning component as part of their portfolio. They have WMS, TMS. They also have slightly more retail component, which is also very useful as well as a need among these food and beverage manufacturers and distributors. So that could be a plus for Oracle Cloud ERP as well. But overall arching position of Oracle Cloud ERP is very similar as SAP S/4HANA, and that's number 9. Number 8 on our list is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Now, when you compare Business Central with other larger systems, for example, SAP S/4HANA, Oracle Cloud ERP, generally the model, the product model, the attribute model, the inventory model that SAP S/4HANA, Oracle Cloud ERPs have, for the most part, they are able to accommodate a lot more different business processes, business model, even if those business models might be outside of food and beverage. And in food and beverage vertical, you are going to find some manufacturers. For example, they might have a restaurant business model or they might have a bakery business model. Now, those business models are slightly unique and different compared to how food and beverage manufacturer and distributors are going to operate. So if you have all of those processes, generally they are harder to accommodate in mid-market ERP systems like Business Central. But overall, Business Central is very friendly for the food and beverage vertical. And you are going to have several different add-ons and vendors that are part of the Business Central ecosystem. So you have all of those available for the last mile capabilities. The way Business Central structure is designed, it's very friendly for the food and beverage verticals. For example, let's say if you pay attention to their bill of material, and if you look at some of the discrete products, their bill of materials are going to be very different. The key differentiator that you have, among bill of material is going to be the site level planning and and the site level planning is very different for 90% of the food and beverage manufacturers. For example, for a finished product that they have, they might complete that finished product across different sites, and sometimes the part number needs to remain same. So that's why for the process manufacturing as well as for the food and beverage manufacturing verticals, this specific need is very relevant. That's why food and beverage bill of materials are very different from discrete centric products or discrete centric bills of materials. The way their materials and operations are designed, they are very, very, very different. And that's where Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central is really designed for those food and beverage distributor centric spaces. It does really well in the manufacturing centric verticals as well, but the BOMs or bill of materials may not be as friendly for discrete centric verticals. They are far friendlier for process centric verticals as well as for food and beverage, and that's why Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central does really well among those food and beverage manufacturers and distributors. So that is number 8. Now, number 7 on our list is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. And 365 Finance and Operations, it's a very similar product as your SAP S/4HANA, Oracle Cloud ERP, generally designed for very large companies trying to accommodate many different business models, processes across many different geographies. If you have all of those needs, then Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations is going to be a great fit. Otherwise, it might be slightly bulky. Overall, how the processes are organized and structured inside Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, sometimes the kind of rules or business rules that they have support for, they might be only relevant for these global companies, and for the mid-market companies, you might have to take several different shortcuts for you to be able to work inside Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. So that could be a little limitation for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, but overall it does really well in the food and beverage space. It's very well adopted. You are going to find several different add-ons for the last mile capabilities as well. It does have the WMS TMS processes baked as part of the same product, the way your SAP S/4HANA or Oracle Cloud ERP are going to be. In case of SAP S/4HANA, Oracle Cloud ERP, the WMS, TMS, they are slightly different product. And for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, the TMS processes are baked as part of the same product. For food and beverage, you need the kind of load planning that you are going to do, especially if you are going to have internal fleet. You would require all of those capabilities as part of the same process. Generally, with 90% of the ERP systems, the process ends as soon as you create the shipment. You don't have the logistics function, and they will argue that the logistics function as well as the warehouse function sometimes resides inside different warehouse management system. But in this case, let's say if you can use the ERP-centric WMS, ERP-centric TMS, and sometimes that could be a bulky process, especially if the food and beverage manufacturers and distributors, if they care for the speed, these transactions might be slightly bulky. But for the most part, if you care for that ERP integrated processes for WMS and TMS, then in that case, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations could be a great fit. So that's number 7. Number 6 on our list is ECID-COM. And ECID-COM is that operational product. It's very deep into the operations of food and beverage manufacturers. It does really well into the process manufacturing space, especially if you talk about medical device, pharma. If these food and beverage manufacturers are going to have some sort of FDA compliance requirements, in those cases, ECID-COM does really well. It is very well regarded among different validation companies if you are going to have FDA compliance processes. Now, operationally, it's a great product. Financially, it might be slightly weaker. The core financial processes are not ERP-like. They are not as baked, as built as you would find with the traditional ERP systems. So that's going to be a limitation. Even the minor finance functionality, for example, let's say if you look at how you are going to process your credit note, debit note, generally those are not going to be as streamlined as what you would would find with other ERP systems, even some very small ERP systems. For example, Cisco or Acumatica, they are going to have all of those processes built up. The way ECIDCom has always approached, they like to think these processes as more of the operational system, and their processes are very e-commerce like. That's where ECIDCom did really well traditionally. So even today, for companies that are outgrowing QuickBooks, ECIDCom could be a great fit if you are not willing to worry about all of those accounting integrated processes. If you are not willing to change your BOMs to integrate with your accounting processes, if you have that need, ECIDCom could be a great fit, but it's a leaner product, lighter product, from the ERP footprint perspective. If you're outgrowing from other ERPs to ECIDCom, then you might not appreciate as much. But if you're outgrowing for a smaller accounting system, for example, either QuickBooks or Katana or some of those ERP systems, then ECIDCom is going to be operationally very deep. The way their bills of materials are structured, they are very friendly for food and beverage manufacturing and distributor. Those layers are very complex overall. So that's number 6. Number 5 on our list is Syspro. And Syspro is a great product for companies, food and beverage companies that are slightly smaller. Maybe they are single site, single entity. In those use cases, Syspro is going to provide really good lean version. It's not going to overbloat your processes with multi-entity capabilities with some of the other larger systems that we have on this list. So Syspro is going to be a great fit there. Now, Syspro does have all of those processes from the bills of materials perspective. They can support both discrete as well as process, and they do equally well. For the most part, Syspro does really well in the food and beverage space, can accommodate some of the discrete processes as well. For example, let's say if you are going to be some sort of equipment manufacturer, or you are going to have some sort of consumable that you are building for maybe you have a little medical device function as well as part of your food and beverage manufacturing. Maybe you are selling that. Maybe you have buy and sell processes. In those use cases, Syspro does provide deep operational capabilities plus financial capabilities, just like any other smaller ERP. So the financial processes are going to be very ERP-like compared to other leaner systems that we have discussed before this. So that's going to be a strength for Syspro, and that's number 5. Number 4 on our list is Infor Cloud Suite M3, and they don't like to call this M3 anymore, even though underlying system that you are going to have for the food and beverage cloud suite. They like to call this as Infor Cloud Suite Food and Beverage. Infor Cloud Suite Food and Beverage is a suite consisted of many different products in their portfolio. They have integrated all of those, and one of them is going to be the underlying ERP product, which is M3. M3 as a product was always designed for slightly more process manufacturing. It always did well in the food and beverage centric verticals. The way the product model is designed, it's designed for very food and beverage centric products when you are going to have seasonal planning. And the seasonal planning is very different compared to any other ERP systems, in that you do require a lot more attributes as part of your planning process. And the planning process not only needs to be as part of your analytics for reporting, but that has to be part of your planning process as well. So Infor Cloud Suite M3 has all of that built. Infor Cloud Suite M3 does also well among retail-centric spaces. So generally, food and beverage manufacturer, distributor, they are going to be very retail-like in general. The way their operations are organized, the way their processes are organized. So in general, Infor Cloud Suite M3 does really well. But for the most part, Infor Cloud Suite M3 is a much larger product designed to support many different countries, support global processes. It might not be as big as SAP S/4HANA or Oracle Cloud ERP in terms of the size, but it is designed to support many different global trade processes, especially if you are going to have some sort of compliance requirements. For example, let's say if you cannot sell a specific SKU in a particular geography, or you want to restrict a specific geography from the material procurement perspective, some of those processes might not be built with the smaller ERP systems just because they are not designed for those global processes. And that's where Infor Cloud Suite M3 is going to be a great fit. Infor Cloud Suite M3 does have the WMS, TMS, SNOP planning combined as part of their suite. So this is going to be a prescriptive suite, which would mean that they would want you to replace the majority of the components. And if you're not willing to replace that, sometimes there could be a challenge. Some of these prescriptive vendors don't even want to sell to companies if you are creating a best of breed architecture, trying to retain some of your custom components, trying to retain favorite tools. And if that is not aligned with their strategy from the prescriptive perspective, sometimes these vendors don't want to work with those food and beverage manufacturers and distributors. But overall, Infor Cloud Suite M3 is a great product, especially for those global workloads for the mid-market companies. And it does have very complex product model, something that you might not find with the smaller ERP systems on this list. So that's number 4. Now, number 3 on our list is Aptean Food and Beverage ERP. And for the most part, even though Aptean has created a lot of specific processes for food and beverage vertical, this is still a Business Central product. And for the most part, Aptean, even though it's a very large vendor, but they are primarily Microsoft ISV. So it's not a real ERP company. But for the most part, Aptean Food and Beverage ERP does have a lot of different processes that you are going to find with the prescriptive vendors. So their approach is going to be very similar to prescriptive vendors, where they want to sell Aptean only when you are willing to replace the majority of the components that they are trying to sell. They have that as built as part of their suite offering. So the only challenge that we have seen some customers running into is with Aptean's support, which might not be as great. So sometimes you might need a consulting firm on your side, and that could be a challenge. And generally, the way Microsoft approaches the market is they take a very hands-off approach. So you are either working with the ISV or VAR. So that could be a little challenge with Aptean, but it is very well adopted, installed among different food and beverage manufacturers and distributors, and that is number 3. Number 2 on our list is QAD. And QAD, if you compare this is probably going to be very similar to your Infor Cloud Suite M3 in terms of the size of the product, the kind of focus that they have. So this is going to be for either mid-market, upper mid-market companies. Those are going to like and appreciate QAD a lot. The kind of processes it has very complex processes supported as part of the product, because QAD was always a very global product designed for very large companies. Sometimes they are going to have very large logos compared to your SAPs of the world or Oracles of the world. So QAD has been installed in those companies as well as industries as well. But sometimes because of their focus towards larger companies, mid-market companies, the processes that they have built, they might be overwhelming for some of the smaller companies, especially if they don't care for those processes that are built as part of QAD. But QAD also take very prescriptive approach, just like Infor Cloud Suite M3, where they are going to recommend that you buy pretty much everything from them, which is going to be their WMS, TMS, ERP product. And if you need to use something best of breed, sometimes that could be a challenge for a lot of different customers. So that's going to be number 2. Now, number 1 on our list is Sage X3. And Sage X3 is very well installed among food and beverage distributor manufacturers. In terms of size, it's not as overwhelming as some of the other systems that we have seen. In terms of the structure, it does follow very 3-tier architecture from the entity side perspective. Their BOMs and planning processes that they have, they are very friendly for any of the food and beverage manufacturers. The way the attribute and properties model is designed, it can support some very complex food and beverage processes that might be a challenge with some of the other systems that might not do well as well, among food and beverage distributors and manufacturers. But overall, the challenge that you are going to run into with Sage Sage X3 is that you will still rely on a lot of different add-ons that you are going to require, even though it's very comparable to your Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations product, where you are going to have the TMS, WMS product processes built as part of the same product. But for the most part, I mean, it does really well among food and beverage manufacturers and distributors. So that's number one. If you enjoyed this list, we are also going to include a detailed report as part of this video. So you might want to check that. And we include some of these rankings as part of our digital transformation report, which we publish annually. So you might want to check that. Again, you can find the QR code throughout this video. We publish these videos on a weekly basis. So like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, if you prefer audio form, these episodes are also available as audio podcast on major podcasting platforms. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.